The blood-red desert sun cast long shadows across the dusty terrain as Isaac Lawson dragged his wounded body toward the horizon, each step leaving a crimson trail behind him. 3 days without proper food or water, a bullet lodged in his side, and the unforgiving Nevada wilderness stretching before him, death seemed certain. His cracked lips formed silent prayers as his vision blurred, the world spinning around him like a broken compass. In that moment, as consciousness threatened to abandon him, he heard hoofbeats approaching, too late to run, too weak to fight. Isaac collapsed to his knees, his hand instinctively reaching for the empty holster at his hip, when a voice, clear and commanding, broke through his delirium. "My God, you're still alive." The year was 1876, 3 months after the defeat of General Custer at Little Bighorn, and the West was as wild and unpredictable as ever. Isaac had been riding with a wagon train heading to California when bandits attacked near the Nevada border. The massacre left him the only survivor, bleeding and abandoned in unforgiving terrain. The voice belonged to Olivia Calloway, a widow who ran a modest horse ranch 10 miles outside of Redemption Creek, a mining settlement that had seen better days. She dismounted from her chestnut mare with practiced ease, her riding skirt billowing in the hot desert wind. "Can you hear me?" Olivia knelt beside Isaac, her auburn hair escaping from beneath her wide-brimmed hat. At 26, she'd already experienced more hardship than most faced in a lifetime. The lines around her eyes spoke of both laughter and grief in equal measure. Isaac tried to speak, but only managed a raspy whisper. "Leave me. Bandits might return." His parched throat constricted painfully around each word. "Nonsense." Olivia removed her canteen and pressed it to his lips. "Drink slowly now." The cool water brought Isaac back from the brink. His vision cleared enough to see the determined woman before him. Her face was sun-kissed and freckled, her green eyes assessing his wounds with practical efficiency. "You've been shot," she observed, examining the crude bandage he'd fashioned from his torn shirt. "And it's festering. How long have you been out here?" 3 days, maybe 4. Isaac winced as she probed the wound. "Lost track after the fever set in." Olivia pursed her lips. "You're not going to make it much longer without proper care. Can you stand?" With her assistance, Isaac struggled to his feet, swaying dangerously. Standing at full height, he towered over her despite his weakened state. "My horse is strong enough to carry us both back to my ranch," she said, leading him toward her mare. "It's not far." "Why help me?" Isaac asked, his voice barely audible. "I'm a stranger." Olivia's expression softened momentarily before hardening with resolve. "Because out here, Lawson, Isaac Lawson." "Because out here, Mr. Lawson, we help those who need it. The desert doesn't discriminate when it comes to taking lives. Neither do I when it comes to saving them." With considerable effort, Olivia helped Isaac onto her horse before mounting behind him. His tall frame dwarfed hers, but she positioned herself to keep him balanced as they began the journey back to her ranch. "Stay awake," she commanded. One arm secured around his waist to keep him from falling. "Talk to me. Tell me what happened." Isaac struggled to keep his eyes open, the gentle swaying of the horse threatening to lull him into unconsciousness. "Wagon train. Ambushed. Everyone dead." "Wagon train to where?" Olivia prompted, deliberately keeping him engaged. "California." Isaac coughed, the movement sending fresh waves of pain through his wounded side. "Gold rush. Still drawing folks west." "The rush ended years ago," Olivia replied, guiding her horse around a cluster of rocks. "Though I suppose hope springs eternal." "Not hope?" Isaac's head lolled forward before he jerked it back up. "Running. From something worse." The confession hung in the air between them as they continued their slow journey across the parched landscape. Olivia didn't press him further, sensing the effort it took for him to remain conscious. After what seemed like an eternity, a modest ranch came into view. A small, sturdy cabin stood alongside a barn and corral where several horses grazed. A windmill creaked nearby, pumping precious water from deep beneath the ground. "Almost there," Olivia encouraged. "Just hold on a little longer." As they approached the cabin, a young boy of about 12 ran out to meet them, his eyes widening at the sight of the wounded stranger. "Tommy," Olivia called out, "run ahead and prepare the guest room, and heat water for bandages." The boy nodded and dashed back into the cabin. "Your son?" Isaac managed to ask. "My nephew," Olivia corrected. "My sister's boy. She passed 3 winters ago." Once they reached the cabin, Tommy reappeared with an older man who introduced himself as Jeremiah, the ranch hand who helped Olivia manage the property. "Found him in the desert," Olivia explained as they helped Isaac dismount. "Gunshot wound, infected. Survivor from that wagon train massacre we heard about." Jeremiah's weathered face creased with concern. "Doc Reynolds is 3 days' ride to Silver Creek." "Then we'll have to manage ourselves," Olivia replied decisively. "Get him inside." The next few hours passed in a blur of pain for Isaac. Olivia cleaned his wound with whiskey that burned like hellfire, extracted the bullet with steady hands, and stitched him closed with a bone needle and catgut. Throughout the ordeal, Isaac bit down on a leather strap, his body rigid with agony. "You're lucky," Olivia told him afterward, wiping blood from her hands. "The bullet missed anything vital, but the infection." She didn't need to finish the thought. They both knew infection in the wilderness was often a death sentence. "Why were you out there alone?" Isaac asked weakly as she prepared a poultice of herbs. Olivia pressed the mixture against his wound before wrapping fresh bandages around his torso. "Tracking a mountain lion that's been taking my calves. Caught sight of your blood trail instead." Her matter-of-fact tone belied the dangerous nature of her errand. Few women or men would hunt mountain lions alone. "You always chase predators by yourself?" Isaac's speech slurred as exhaustion overtook him. "Out here, Mr. Lawson, you either learn to handle danger yourself, or you perish waiting for someone else to save you." She placed a cool cloth on his forehead. "Now rest. Your body needs strength to fight the infection." As darkness claimed him, Isaac heard her voice one last time, firm but somehow gentle. "You're not dying on my watch." The fever took hold during the night, plunging Isaac into a world of nightmares. He thrashed and called out, reliving the ambush, the screams, the gunfire, the faces of the dead. Through it all, Olivia remained at his bedside, cooling his brow, changing poultices, and forcing herbal teas between his cracked lips. On the third night, when his fever peaked dangerously high, she spoke to him continuously, her voice an anchor in his sea of delirium. "You listen to me, Isaac Lawson," she said, gripping his hand tightly. "You're not leaving me yet. You hear me? You've survived this long. Don't you dare give up now." Something in her tone, perhaps the raw emotion behind her practiced strength, reached him through the haze. Isaac's eyes fluttered open briefly, meeting hers in the lamplight. "Why?" he whispered. Olivia's expression softened. "Because everyone deserves a fighting chance, even stubborn cowboys with secrets." By morning, his fever had broken. Isaac awakened to find Tommy sitting in the chair beside his bed, whittling a piece of wood. "You're awake!" The boy jumped up, dropping his project. "Aunt Liv, he's awake." Olivia appeared in the doorway moments later, wiping her hands on her apron. Dark circles beneath her eyes testified to her sleepless vigil. "Well," she said, approaching the bed, "it seems you've decided to stay with us after all." Isaac attempted to sit up but groaned at the sharp pain in his side. "Careful now," Olivia warned, helping him adjust against the pillows. "You'll tear those stitches if you move too quickly." "How long?" Isaac's voice was hoarse from disuse. "5 days since I found you." Olivia poured water from a pitcher on the nightstand. You've been more dead than alive for most of that time. Tommy peered at Isaac with undisguised curiosity. You talked a lot in your sleep, about men with painted faces and a box you had to protect. Tommy, Olivia chided gently, why don't you go help Jeremiah with the horses? The boy reluctantly left, casting one last inquisitive glance at Isaac. When they were alone, Olivia sat in the chair Tommy had vacated. You don't have to explain anything to us. But if there's trouble following you, I need to know. I have Tommy to consider. Isaac swallowed, his throat raw. The men who attacked the wagon train, they weren't ordinary bandits. I gathered as much. Olivia's expression remained neutral. Was it something to do with this box Tommy mentioned? Isaac closed his eyes briefly, weighing how much to reveal. This woman had saved his life at considerable risk to herself. She deserved some measure of truth. I was a Pinkerton, he finally said, hired to escort a witness to Sacramento. The box contained evidence documents implicating several wealthy men in land fraud against the Southern Pacific Railroad. Olivia's eyebrows rose slightly. And these wealthy men hired guns to stop you. They hired the Blackwell Gang. Isaac watched her reaction carefully. Ever heard of them? The slight paling of her complexion was answer enough. The Blackwell Gang was notorious throughout the territory's ruthless hired killers who never left survivors. And yet, here you are, Olivia observed quietly, the sole survivor. I played dead after taking a bullet. They were thorough with the others. Isaac's jaw tightened at the memory. When they left, I crawled away. Been moving at night, hiding during the day ever since. Do they know you survived? If they did, I'd already be dead. Olivia stood and walked to the window, gazing out at the sun-drenched landscape. Your witness? The one with the evidence? Isaac's silence told her everything she needed to know. She turned back to face him. So the Blackwell Gang might still be searching these parts for a dead Pinkerton agent. I'm not with the agency anymore, Isaac clarified. This was a favor for an old friend. Some favor. Olivia's lips pressed into a thin line. Well, Mr. Lawson, you're in no condition to go anywhere for at least a few weeks. In the meantime, you're just a ranch hand I hired from back east, if anyone comes asking. Isaac studied her, surprised by her quick decision. You'd risk harboring me? I've faced worse odds. She straightened her apron with a decisive motion. Besides, I could use the extra help once you're on your feet. Jeremiah isn't getting any younger, and Tommy's still too small for the heavy work. I'm obliged, Isaac said, sincerity softening his usual guardedness. Truly. Olivia nodded briskly. Rest now. I'll bring some broth later. As she turned to leave, Isaac called after her. Miss Calloway? She paused in the doorway. Thank you for not giving up on me. Something unreadable flickered across her face. Vulnerability, perhaps, or recognition. Then it was gone, replaced by her practical demeanor. Like I said, Mr. Lawson, everyone deserves a fighting chance. Over the next 2 weeks, Isaac's strength gradually returned. The infection cleared and his wound began to heal cleanly. By the 3rd week, he insisted on earning his keep despite Olivia's protests. You'll tear those stitches, she warned as he struggled to pull on a borrowed shirt one morning. The stitches come out today, he reminded her, and I've imposed on your hospitality long enough. Olivia crossed her arms. Where exactly do you plan to go in your condition? The nearest town is 20 miles away, and you don't even have a horse. Isaac had no good answer. The truth was, he had nowhere to go. His witness was dead. The evidence destroyed. The Pinkerton agency believed him dead, and his failure meant the corrupt businessmen would continue their operations unchecked. At least let me help around the ranch, he compromised. I'm going stir-crazy in this room. Olivia sighed. Fine. Jeremiah needs help fixing the corral fence. Nothing strenuous, you understand? Isaac nodded, grateful for the opportunity to be useful. The Nevada summer was in full force, the sun beating down mercilessly as Isaac worked alongside Jeremiah. The old ranch hand was taciturn but knowledgeable, showing Isaac efficient ways to repair the fence posts without straining his healing wound. From the corner of his eye, Isaac observed Olivia working with the horses in the adjacent paddock. She moved with natural grace and authority, the animals responding to her calm confidence. Tommy darted around helping where he could, his boyish energy a stark contrast to Jeremiah's measured pace. "She's something else, ain't she?" Jeremiah remarked, catching Isaac's gaze. Isaac quickly returned his attention to the fence post. "Miss Calloway seems very capable." "Capable?" Jeremiah snorted. "That woman's the strongest person I ever met, and I fought with Sherman through Georgia." "How long have you worked for her?" Jeremiah hammered a nail with more force than necessary. "Worked for her husband first. Daniel Calloway was a good man, treated his hands fair, built this place from nothing." He paused, his weathered face solemn. "When the influenza took him 5 years back, everyone figured she'd sell up and move back east to her people. Instead, she learned every aspect of running this ranch and kept it going through drought, rustlers, and bank troubles." Isaac glanced again at Olivia, who was now demonstrating to Tommy how to properly secure a saddle. "What about her sister? Tommy's mother?" "Margaret came west after Daniel died, bringing the boy. Thought Olivia needed family around her. She took sick winter before last pneumonia. By the time we could get the doctor out here." Jeremiah shook his head. "Olivia's raised the boy as her own ever since." "No other family?" "None that matter." Jeremiah's tone suggested there was more to that story, but he didn't elaborate. "She needs more help around here than she lets on. Ranch this size should have at least 4 hands, but she can only afford me, and I'm too old and broken to do half what needs doing." The implications weren't lost on Isaac. Olivia Calloway was struggling to keep her ranch afloat, yet she'd taken in a wounded stranger without hesitation. That evening, after a simple but hearty dinner of beans, cornbread, and preserved peaches, Isaac found Olivia on the porch, reviewing figures in a ledger by lamplight. "Mind if I join you?" he asked, stepping carefully through the door with 2 cups of coffee. She glanced up, surprise briefly crossing her features before she nodded toward the empty chair beside her. "Couldn't sleep? Too much time in bed already." He offered her one of the cups, which she accepted with a small smile of thanks. For a while they sat in companionable silence, listening to the night sounds of the desert coyotes calling in the distance, the soft nickering of horses in the corral, the ever-present whisper of wind across the scrubland. "Jeremiah tells me you've run this ranch alone since your husband passed," Isaac said finally. Olivia closed her ledger. "Jeremiah talks too much. He admires you greatly. He's loyal." She sipped her coffee. "That's worth more than admiration out here." Isaac studied her profile in the lamplight. The strength in her features was evident, but so was the fatigue etched around her eyes, the slight slump of shoulders carrying too much for too long. "What will you do?" she asked suddenly. "When you're fully recovered?" The question caught Isaac off guard. He'd been avoiding thinking about his future. "I'm not sure. My career with the Pinkertons is effectively over." "Because you failed to protect your witness?" "Because I'm officially dead." Isaac stared into his coffee. "The agency received confirmation of my death after the ambush. Standard procedure would be to notify my next of kin." "And do you have family? Someone waiting for you?" "No one's waited for me in a long time." The admission felt strangely liberating. "My parents died years ago. No siblings, no wife." Olivia turned to look at him directly. "So you're a ghost?" "I suppose I am." Isaac met her gaze. "Fitting, since I've felt half dead for years." Even before this, he gestured to his healing wound. Why's that? Isaac considered deflecting but found himself wanting to offer her the same honesty she'd shown him. 10 years as a Pinkerton changes a man. I've hunted people across every territory, seen the worst humanity has to offer. After a while, you start to lose pieces of yourself. Olivia nodded slowly, understanding in her eyes. Daniel used to say something similar about his time in the war. Said he left parts of his soul on different battlefields. Your husband fought in the war between the states? With the Union. 2nd California Cavalry? Pride tinged her voice. He never spoke much about it, except to say he'd seen enough killing to last several lifetimes. Wise man. He was. Olivia's expression softened with memory. He taught me that strength isn't about never breaking, it's about how you piece yourself back together afterward. Isaac contemplated her words, finding unexpected resonance. I'm not sure I know how to piece myself back together anymore. Olivia regarded him thoughtfully. Maybe you don't have to do it alone. The moment stretched between them, laden with unspoken possibilities. Isaac felt something stir within him, something he'd thought long dead. Before he could respond, however, Tommy's voice called from inside the house. Aunt Liv, I had the dream again. Olivia stood immediately. Excuse me. Tommy has nightmares about his mother sometimes. Isaac nodded, watching her disappear into the house. He remained on the porch long after, mulling over their conversation and the strange new feeling taking root in his chest, like a desert plant, finding unexpected water after years of drought. The following days established a routine. Isaac's strength continued to improve as he worked around the ranch, learning the rhythm of life in this isolated corner of Nevada. He fixed fences, repaired the leaking roof on the barn, and helped Jeremiah shoe the horses. Olivia, for her part, seemed to gradually accept his presence. She began including him in decisions about the ranch, valuing his practical input on security measures and efficiency improvements. In the evenings, they often shared quiet conversations on the porch after Tommy went to bed. Isaac learned that Olivia had grown up in Boston, the daughter of a successful merchant who disapproved of her marriage to a former soldier with dreams of ranching in the West. She had followed Daniel to Nevada with optimism and determination, adapting to frontier life with remarkable resilience. I haven't seen my father since we left Boston, she admitted one evening. He disowned me, said I was throwing my life away on frontier fantasies. Do you regret it? Isaac asked. Coming west? Olivia considered the question seriously. There were moments during the drought 2 years ago, or after Daniel died, when I questioned everything. But no, I don't regret it. This life has shaped me in ways I never imagined. It suits you, Isaac observed. This land, this life. You belong here in a way few people ever belong anywhere. She smiled a genuine smile that transformed her face, softening the practical exterior she typically presented to the world. Thank you for seeing that. Most people just see a widow too stubborn to know when she's beaten. I see a woman of extraordinary courage. Their eyes met, and something passed between them, recognition perhaps, or understanding. Both quickly looked away, suddenly conscious of boundaries neither was ready to cross. July faded into August, bringing brief but violent thunderstorms that transformed the parched landscape. After one such downpour, Isaac found Olivia standing in the doorway of the barn, surveying the water damage to the roof they'd just repaired. We'll need to replace those beams entirely, she sighed. The water's rotted them through. I can ride into town tomorrow for lumber, Isaac offered. We should reinforce the entire section while we're at it. Olivia turned to him, a half smile playing at her lips. We? I'm not going anywhere, Miss Calloway. The words escaped before Isaac could consider their implications. That is, unless you want me to. She studied him for a long moment, her expression unreadable. And what about the Pinkerton agency? What about your old life? That life ended in the desert where you found me. Isaac stepped closer, his voice low and earnest. I'm not sure what I'm becoming now, but I know I'm not the same man who was left to die out there. Olivia's breath caught slightly. Isaac. Their moment was interrupted by the distant sound of approaching horses, multiple riders coming fast toward the ranch. Isaac immediately tensed, instinctively reaching for a weapon he no longer carried. Stay here, he instructed, moving toward the cabin to retrieve the rifle he knew Olivia kept above the mantel. No. Olivia caught his arm. If it's trouble, we face it together. They hurried to the front of the property as 5 riders appeared on the horizon, dust billowing behind them. Isaac positioned himself slightly in front of Olivia, though he knew she was perfectly capable of defending herself. As the riders drew closer, Isaac's blood ran cold. Even at a distance, he recognized the distinctive duster coat of Wade Blackwell, leader of the gang that had massacred the wagon train. They had found him. Get Tommy and hide in the root cellar, Isaac said urgently. These are dangerous men. Olivia stood her ground. This is my property, Mr. Lawson. I don't hide from anyone on my own land. Before Isaac could argue further, Jeremiah appeared with Tommy, both carrying rifles. Riders coming fast, Miss Olivia. Don't look friendly. Tommy, get inside, Olivia ordered, her tone brooking no argument. The boy reluctantly retreated to the cabin, though he positioned himself by the window, clearly intending to watch. The Blackwell gang slowed as they approached the main house, forming a loose semicircle before the porch. Wade Blackwell, a tall man with cold eyes and a meticulously groomed mustache, tipped his hat with mock courtesy. Afternoon, madam. Hope we're not intruding. What business brings you to my ranch? Olivia asked, her voice steady. Blackwell's gaze shifted to Isaac, recognition dawning in his eyes. Well, I'll be damned. The dead have risen. He turned back to Olivia. Madam, you're harboring a man wanted for theft and murder across 3 territories. Isaac stepped forward. That's a lie, Blackwell. You know damn well who I am and why you're here. Isaac Lawson, former Pinkerton agent, Blackwell announced with theatrical flair. Wanted for stealing railroad documents and murdering a federal witness he was assigned to protect. Olivia didn't flinch. My ranch hand has been here for over a month. Whatever you're accusing him of, you've got the wrong man. Blackwell's smile didn't reach his eyes. I admire your loyalty, madam, but we have a warrant for his arrest. He produced a document from inside his coat, signed by Judge Carlton of Arizona Territory. A forgery, Isaac stated flatly. Blackwell and his men were hired to kill everyone on that wagon train and destroy evidence of land fraud. They think I still have those documents. Tension crackled in the air as the standoff continued. Blackwell's men shifted in their saddles, hands hovering near their weapons. I don't recognize your authority on my property, Olivia declared. I suggest you leave now. Blackwell's expression hardened. Madam, we can do this easy or hard, but we're taking Lawson either way. You're outnumbered, Isaac pointed out, gesturing to Jeremiah with his rifle and the cabin where Tommy watched. And I don't have what you're looking for. The documents burned with the wagon. Uncertainty flickered briefly across Blackwell's face before his cold confidence returned. Then you've got nothing to bargain with, Lawson. The men who hired us want you silenced, documents or no documents. I'm giving you one chance to ride away, Isaac warned. Whatever you're being paid, it's not worth dying for. One of Blackwell's men, younger and more impulsive than the others, reached for his pistol. This is taking too long, Wade. Let's just... The crack of a rifle shot cut through the air. The young outlaw clutched his shoulder, blood seeping between his fingers as he cursed in pain. All eyes turned to the source of the shot. Olivia stood with a smoking rifle, her expression resolute. That was a warning. The next shot won't be so generous. Blackwell's face contorted with fury. You've just made a terrible mistake, woman. What followed was chaos. Blackwell's men drew their weapons as Isaac shoved Olivia toward cover behind a water trough. Jeremiah fired from the corner of the barn, forcing two of the outlaws to dismount and seek shelter. Gunfire erupted from all directions. Isaac, weaponless, made a desperate dash for the fallen outlaw's horse where a rifle was secured in its saddle holster. Bullets kicked up dust at his heels as he ran, his recent wound protesting with every movement. He reached the horse, yanked the rifle free, and swung around in time to see Blackwell aiming at Olivia, who was reloading her weapon. Without hesitation, Isaac fired. The bullet struck Blackwell's arm, throwing off his aim. The outlaw leader howled in rage and pain. "Kill them all!" Blackwell screamed to his remaining men. Two outlaws charged toward the cabin where Tommy remained. Isaac's heart stopped as he realized their intention to use the boy as leverage. He raised his rifle but knew he couldn't get a clean shot at both men. Suddenly, Tommy appeared on the porch with Olivia's shotgun. The weapon was almost as big as he was. But the determined boy managed to fire once, the recoil knocking him backward through the doorway. The blast caught one outlaw in the leg, sending him crashing to the ground. The remaining outlaws, seeing their advantage disappearing, began to retreat. Blackwell, clutching his bleeding arm, spat curses as he mounted his horse one-handed. "This isn't over, Lawson!" he shouted. "We know where to find you now!" As quickly as they had arrived, the Blackwell gang disappeared over the ridge, leaving dust and blood in their wake. Isaac rushed to Olivia, who was already running toward the cabin to check on Tommy. The boy was shaken but unhurt, proud of his role in defending the ranch despite Olivia's mixture of relief and admonishment for putting himself in danger. "Are you injured?" Isaac asked Olivia, scanning her for wounds. She shook her head. "I'm fine. Jeremiah?" The old ranch hand approached, limping slightly. "Caught a graze on my leg, nothing serious." As the adrenaline of the confrontation faded, the implications of what had just occurred settled over them. The Blackwell gang now knew exactly where Isaac was, and they wouldn't hesitate to return with reinforcements. "You need to leave," Olivia said quietly that evening, after Tommy had finally fallen asleep. "They'll come back, and next time, they'll bring more men." Isaac nodded grimly. "I know. I've put you all in danger by staying." They sat at the kitchen table cleaning weapons by lamplight. The domesticity of the scene contrasted sharply with the violence of the afternoon. "Where will you go?" Olivia asked, not meeting his eyes. "North, maybe. Idaho, or Montana. Somewhere I can lose myself." Isaac checked the action on the rifle he'd claimed from the outlaw. "I could send for you and Tommy once I'm settled." "No." Olivia's response was firm. "This ranch is everything to me. It's all I have left of Daniel, all Tommy has left of his mother. I won't abandon it." "Then I'll stay and fight," Isaac declared. "We can prepare, set traps, recruit help from neighboring ranches. And how many innocent people die in a war that isn't theirs?" Olivia finally looked up, her eyes shimmering with unshed tears. "This is your fight, Isaac, not mine, not Tommy's." The truth of her words struck him like a physical blow. He had brought this danger to her doorstep, to this woman who had saved him, cared for him, who had begun to matter to him more than he'd thought possible. "You're right," he conceded, his voice rough with emotion. "I'll leave at first light." Olivia nodded, her practical nature reasserting itself. "Take Daniel's horse, the bay gelding. He's strong and sure-footed in rough country. And there's money in the tin above the fireplace. Not much, but enough to get you started somewhere new." "I can't take your money." "You can, and you will." Her tone brooked no argument. "Consider it payment for the work you've done here." They fell silent, the weight of impending separation pressing between them. Finally, Isaac reached across the table and covered her hand with his. "Olivia," he said softly, using her first name for the first time. "Thank you. For everything. For saving my life that day in the desert." and every day since. She turned her hand to grasp his, her fingers warm and calloused from years of hard work. You would have done the same. I'm not so sure about that. The man I was before I met you, he'd lost sight of kindness. Olivia's eyes softened. And the man you are now? The man I am now wishes circumstances were different. The admission cost him something to voice aloud. Wishes he had the right to stay. Something unspoken passed between them. Possibility, regret, longing. For a brief moment Isaac thought she might lean toward him, but instead, she withdrew her hand and stood. Get some rest. You have a long journey ahead. Dawn had barely broken when Isaac finished saddling the bay gelding. He'd packed lightly some provisions, ammunition for the rifle, a canteen of water, and the money Olivia had insisted he take. The household remained quiet. He'd decided against formal goodbyes, thinking it would be easier this way. He was securing the last of his belongings when Olivia appeared from the cabin, wrapped in a shawl against the morning chill. She carried a small package wrapped in oilcloth. My father taught me never to let anyone leave without proper provisions, she said, handing him the package. Jeremiah smoked some venison last week. It'll keep for your journey. Isaac accepted it gratefully. I was hoping to avoid this part. Saying goodbye? A sad smile touched her lips. I've learned it's better to face difficult things head-on. Tommy emerged from the cabin next, followed by Jeremiah. The boy looked solemn, understanding more than his years might suggest. Will you come back someday, Mr. Lawson? Tommy asked. Isaac knelt to eye level with the boy. I'd like that very much, Tommy. When it's safe. You take care of your aunt in the meantime, all right? Tommy nodded solemnly. I will. I promise. Jeremiah stepped forward, offering a weathered hand. You're a good man, Lawson. Don't let anyone convince you otherwise. Isaac shook his hand firmly. Keep them safe, Jeremiah. With my life, the old man promised. Finally, Isaac turned to Olivia. There was so much he wanted to say, but words seemed wholly inadequate. I'll send word when I'm settled, he said. Let you know I'm safe. She nodded, her composure maintained despite the emotion in her eyes. Be careful, Isaac. He mounted the gelding, taking one last look at the small family that had taken him in, that had reminded him of humanity's capacity for kindness in a world that had shown him mostly its cruelty. Goodbye, Olivia. As he rode away, he didn't look back. He couldn't bear to see her standing there, watching him leave. The image of her strong, compassionate, beautiful in her practicality was already etched into his memory. It would have to be enough. Isaac traveled north for 3 days, keeping to rough country where tracking would be difficult. He avoided settlements and main trails, sleeping under the stars and rationing the provisions Olivia had provided. The bay gelding proved to be an excellent mount, sure-footed and intelligent, as she had promised. On the 4th day, as he made camp near a small creek, Isaac found himself thinking constantly of the ranch and its inhabitants. Had the Blackwell Gang returned? Was Olivia safe? The questions tormented him, along with the growing certainty that he'd made a terrible mistake in leaving. By leaving, he'd hoped to draw the danger away from her. But what if his absence only made her more vulnerable? Blackwell wasn't a man to leave loose ends. What if he returned to the ranch to eliminate potential witnesses, regardless of whether Isaac was there? The realization hit him with devastating clarity. He hadn't protected Olivia by leaving. He'd abandoned her to face the consequences of his presence. The Blackwell Gang knew where she was, knew she had helped him. They would return, whether to search for him or to ensure her silence. Without hesitation, Isaac doused his campfire and repacked his meager belongings. He would return to the ranch immediately, taking a circuitous route to avoid being followed. The journey back would be faster. He knew the terrain now, and urgency fueled his determination. As he rode through the night, Isaac formulated a plan. He couldn't stay at the ranch that would only continue to put Olivia and Tommy in danger. But he could ensure their safety before disappearing permanently. That meant dealing with Wade Blackwell once and for all. It took 2 days of hard riding to return to the vicinity of Redemption Creek. Isaac approached the ranch cautiously, scouting from a distant ridge. What he saw sent ice through his veins. 3 unfamiliar horses were tethered outside the cabin, and there was no sign of activity in the corral or barn. Moving stealthily, Isaac left the gelding hidden in a draw and approached on foot, rifle in hand. As he neared the property, he heard raised voices from inside the cabin, one of them unmistakably Wade Blackwell's. "I'm running out of patience, woman," Blackwell was saying. "Lawson couldn't have gotten far in 3 days. Where did he go?" "I've told you already," Olivia's voice replied, tight with controlled anger. "I don't know where he went. North, that's all he said." "Lying won't help you. Or the boy." At the mention of Tommy, Isaac's blood ran cold. He crept to a window, peering carefully inside. What he saw confirmed his worst fears. Blackwell and 2 of his men had Olivia, Tommy, and Jeremiah held at gunpoint in the cabin's main room. The old ranch hand was bleeding from a wound on his temple, slumped in a chair. Blackwell paced before Olivia, who stood protectively in front of Tommy. Despite her precarious situation, her expression remained defiant. "Our employer is very interested in ensuring Lawson doesn't resurface," Blackwell continued, "and equally interested in making sure anyone who helped him understands the consequences." "Your employer is a coward," Olivia replied evenly, "sending hired guns to do his dirty work." Blackwell backhanded her without warning, the force of the blow sending her staggering. Tommy cried out, trying to rush to her side, but one of the outlaws grabbed him roughly. Isaac had seen enough. He retreated silently, circling around to the back of the cabin where a small window led into the root cellar. He knew from his time at the ranch that the cellar connected to the main floor through a trapdoor in the pantry. Squeezing through the narrow window, Isaac found himself in the cool darkness of the root cellar. He moved carefully among the preserved foods and supplies, making his way to the ladder that led upward. Through the wooden planks of the trapdoor, he could hear the conversation continuing above. "We're going to burn this place to the ground," Blackwell was saying. "Make it look like an accident. Tragic, really widow and orphan boy caught in a ranch fire." "You won't get away with this," Jeremiah's voice, weak but determined. "Oh, but I will, old man. Just like I've gotten away with everything else." Blackwell's voice dripped with malice. "But first, we're going to wait a bit longer. See if Lawson comes crawling back to protect his new family." Isaac tensed. Blackwell was using them as bait, expecting him to return. Well, he wouldn't disappoint. But he needed to create a diversion, something to separate the outlaws so he could deal with them one by one. Searching the cellar, Isaac found a lantern and matches. It was risky, but he had little choice. Positioning himself beneath the trapdoor, he listened carefully to track the movements above. When he determined that all 3 outlaws were in the main room, he lit the lantern and hurled it against the far wall of the cellar. The glass shattered, oil splashing across stored hay. Flames erupted immediately, smoke beginning to fill the confined space. Isaac quickly moved to the opposite side of the cellar, positioning himself to ambush whoever came to investigate. Above, alarm spread quickly. "Fire!" one of the outlaws shouted. "There's a fire in the cellar." "Check it out," Blackwell ordered. "Could be a distraction." Footsteps approached, and the trapdoor was yanked open. An outlaw peered down into the smoke-filled space, gun drawn. Before he could react, Isaac lunged upward, grabbing the man's arm and yanking him off balance. The outlaw tumbled down the ladder, landing hard on the cellar floor. Isaac struck quickly, rendering the man unconscious with the butt of his rifle. Taking the outlaw's pistol, he climbed swiftly up the ladder and emerged into the pantry. Smoke was beginning to seep into the main cabin. "Harper, "What's happening down there?" Blackwell called. Isaac moved silently through the pantry to the kitchen. From there, he could see into the main room. Blackwell stood near the front door, gun trained on Olivia and Tommy. The remaining outlaw was moving cautiously toward the pantry, weapon drawn. When the outlaw entered the kitchen, Isaac struck from behind the door, disarming him with a swift blow. The outlaw recovered quickly, tackling Isaac into the main room. They crashed into furniture, grappling for control. In the confusion, Jeremiah lunged for the pistol that had skittered across the floor. Despite his injuries, the old ranch hand managed to grab the weapon and fire a shot at Blackwell. The bullet went wide, but it was enough to distract the outlaw leader. Olivia seized the opportunity, shoving Tommy toward the door. "Run!" she commanded. "Get to the barn and hide." Blackwell turned his gun toward the fleeing boy, but Olivia threw herself at him, knocking his aim off. The shot splintered the doorframe as Tommy disappeared outside. Isaac finally gained the upper hand in his struggle, delivering a knockout blow to his opponent. He scrambled to his feet in time to see Blackwell shoving Olivia roughly aside, raising his gun toward her prone form. "No!" Isaac roared, launching himself at Blackwell. The two men crashed together, Blackwell's pistol discharging harmlessly into the ceiling. They rolled across the floor, each fighting for dominance, evenly matched in desperation, if not in strength. Blackwell was younger, faster, but Isaac fought with the fury of a man with everything to lose. "Should have stayed gone, Lawson," Blackwell grunted, landing a solid blow to Isaac's ribs. "Could have lived a little longer." "Not without finishing this," Isaac replied, blocking another strike and countering with his own. The smoke was thickening now, flames beginning to lick up through the floorboards from the cellar below. Jeremiah had managed to help Olivia to her feet, and they were making their way toward the door. "Get out!" Isaac shouted to them. "The place is going up." Blackwell used the momentary distraction to break free, scrambling for his fallen pistol. Isaac dove after him, catching him just as his fingers closed around the weapon. They struggled for control, the gun between them, neither willing to yield. Olivia appeared suddenly at Blackwell's back, bringing a cast-iron skillet down on his head with all her strength. The outlaw leader crumpled, the pistol falling from his limp fingers. "We need to go," Olivia urged, coughing in the thickening smoke. "Now!" Isaac grabbed Blackwell's unconscious form and dragged him toward the door. "Can't leave him to burn. Need him alive to clear my name." They stumbled out into the fresh air just as flames began to consume the cabin in earnest. Jeremiah had already made it outside and was calling for Tommy, who emerged cautiously from the barn. "The horses!" Isaac gasped, still clutching Blackwell. "We need to get to town, find the sheriff." Olivia nodded, already moving toward the corral. "Tommy, help Jeremiah with the horses. Quickly now." Within minutes, they had 4 horses saddled. Isaac secured the still unconscious Blackwell across one mount, tying him firmly in place. The other outlaw in the cellar would have to fend for himself if he regained consciousness. The fire was spreading too rapidly to risk going back inside. As they prepared to ride, Isaac pulled Olivia aside. "I came back because I realized they'd come after you whether I was here or not. I couldn't leave you to face that alone." Olivia's eyes reflected the flames consuming her home, yet there was no accusation in her gaze, only determination. "We'll talk about your poor decision-making skills later. Right now, we need to get to town before the rest of Blackwell's gang realizes something's wrong." Despite everything, Isaac felt a smile tug at his lips. "Yes, madam." The ride to Redemption Creek took over 2 hours at a cautious pace. Jeremiah's injuries slowed them down, as did their need to avoid open trails where they might be spotted by the remaining Blackwell gang members. The small mining settlement was quiet when they arrived, most activity centered around the saloon at the far end of the main street. Isaac led their party directly to the sheriff's office, where a startled deputy scrambled to his feet at the sight of their battered group and their unconscious prisoner. "Need to see Sheriff Taylor," Isaac announced. Immediately. The deputy disappeared into a back room, returning moments later with a grizzled man in his 50s, star pinned to his vest and suspicion in his eyes. "What's all this?" Sheriff Taylor demanded, eyeing the unconscious Blackwell. "Wade Blackwell," Isaac replied, "leader of the Blackwell Gang, wanted in 3 territories for murder, theft, and extortion." The sheriff's eyebrows rose. "And you are?" "Isaac Lawson, former Pinkerton agent." Isaac met the man's skeptical gaze steadily. "Blackwell and his gang massacred a wagon train 3 weeks back, a Pinkerton operation transporting evidence of land fraud. I was the only survivor." Taylor's expression remained dubious. "That's quite a story, Mr. Lawson. Any proof to back it up?" Olivia stepped forward. "Sheriff, I'm Olivia Calloway. I owned a ranch 10 miles east of here. These men burned it to the ground tonight after holding my family hostage." "Mrs. Calloway?" Taylor nodded respectfully. "I know of your ranch. Daniel was a good man." "Yes, he was." Olivia's voice remained steady. "And I'm telling you that Mr. Lawson is speaking the truth. Wade Blackwell came to my property searching for him, intending to kill us all to cover his tracks." The sheriff studied her for a long moment before nodding slowly. "Deputy, secure the prisoner in a cell. Then fetch Doc Morgan, we've got injured folks here." As the deputy carried out his orders, Taylor gestured for them to sit. "Now, I want the whole story. From the beginning." Over the next hour, Isaac explained everything: the wagon train massacre, his near death in the desert, Olivia's rescue, and the Blackwell Gang's attacks on the ranch. He was careful to emphasize that the documents he'd been protecting were destroyed in the original attack, meaning he had no evidence beyond his testimony and Blackwell himself. "There's a federal marshal in Silver Creek," Taylor said when Isaac had finished. "Fellow named Guthrie. He's been tracking the Blackwell Gang for months. I'll send a rider tonight to fetch him." "What about the rest of the gang?" Jeremiah asked, wincing as Doc Morgan cleaned the wound on his temple. "I'll organize a posse at first light," Taylor assured him. "They won't get far. In the meantime, you folks should get some rest. Hotel down the street has rooms available." As they prepared to leave, the sheriff pulled Isaac aside. "I knew Daniel Calloway well. He wouldn't want his widow mixed up in something like this." "Believe me, Sheriff, that's the last thing I wanted." Taylor studied him closely. "Marshal Guthrie will want to know why the Pinkerton agency hasn't reported you missing." "Because they believe I'm dead," Isaac admitted. "Standard protocol, they would have confirmed my death after finding the wagon train. Sending a telegram now would only put more people at risk until we have Blackwell secured." The sheriff nodded slowly. "Mrs. Calloway is well respected in these parts. Her word carries weight with me. Don't make me regret trusting it." "You won't." At the hotel, they secured 2 adjoining rooms, one for Olivia and Tommy, the other for Isaac and Jeremiah. The accommodations were simple but clean, a welcome refuge after the chaos of the day. After settling Tommy to sleep, Olivia joined Isaac on the small balcony overlooking the quiet street. The night was clear, stars brilliantly visible above the remote settlement. "I lost everything tonight," she said quietly. "The ranch, our home, all of Daniel's and Margaret's things, everything we built." Isaac's chest tightened with guilt. "I'm sorry, Olivia. More than I can say." To his surprise, she shook her head. "I'm not blaming you, Isaac. The ranch was just things, wood and stone. Tommy is safe. Jeremiah is alive. That's what matters. Still, you've lost your livelihood, your home, things that can be rebuilt." She turned to face him, her expression resolute in the moonlight. "When I found you dying in the desert, you said you were running from something worse. What did you mean?" Isaac hesitated, the question unexpected. "I meant I was running from the man I'd become. 10 years as a Pinkerton, I'd stopped seeing people as people, just targets, witnesses, clients. I took this last job as a favor to an old friend, but my heart wasn't in it anymore. And now? Now. Isaac looked out over the sleeping town. Now I know what I was missing, what I'd forgotten. That there are still good people in this world worth fighting for, worth living for. Olivia's hand found his on the railing, her touch warm and steady. When you rode away 3 days ago, I told myself it was for the best. That you'd be safer, that we'd be safer. I was wrong. Isaac turned to her, heart hammering in his chest. Olivia, let me finish. Her voice was soft but determined. When those men came looking for you, when Blackwell threatened Tommy, I realized something. I've spent 5 years since Daniel died being practical, being strong, doing what needed to be done. I told myself that was enough. She stepped closer, her face tilted up to his. It's not enough, Isaac. I want more than survival. When I thought they might kill us, all I could think was that you'd never know. Know what? He prompted gently when she hesitated. That you'd never know that I've fallen in love with you. The admission hung in the night air between them. Foolish, perhaps, given everything. But there it is. Isaac reached up to cup her face, his thumb gently tracing the bruise forming where Blackwell had struck her. Not foolish. The most sensible thing I've heard in years. Their first kiss was gentle, tentative a question and an answer both. When they parted, Olivia's eyes remained closed for a moment, as if memorizing the sensation. What happens now? She whispered. After the marshal comes? After Blackwell? That depends on you, Isaac replied honestly. I can testify against Blackwell, clear my name with the Pinkerton agency. After that, I could go anywhere. Or you could stay. Olivia's voice held no demand, only possibility. We could rebuild the ranch together. It won't be easy, but nothing worthwhile ever is. Isaac smiled, pulling her closer. I'm not leaving you again, Olivia. Not unless you send me away. Then it's settled. She returned his smile, her practical nature reasserting itself. We'll need to start ordering lumber tomorrow and hiring new hands. The south pasture needs clearing before winter, and... Isaac silenced her with another kiss, longer this time, filled with promise. Tomorrow, he murmured against her lips. We'll figure it all out tomorrow. For tonight. It was enough to hold each other under the vast Nevada sky, survivors of a storm that had nearly destroyed them both, yet somehow had brought them together instead. Marshal Guthrie arrived 2 days later, a tall, austere man with a reputation for relentless pursuit of justice. He interviewed Isaac extensively, comparing his account with information the Pinkerton agency had provided about the wagon train operation. After questioning Blackwell, who had regained consciousness but maintained sullen silence, Guthrie seemed satisfied. Your story checks out, Lawson, he informed Isaac. The description of the documents matches what the agency told me, and we found 2 more of Blackwell's gang hiding out in the hills they've corroborated enough to satisfy me. What about the men who hired them? Isaac pressed. The land fraud. Guthrie's expression hardened. That's still under investigation. Powerful men don't fall easily, but Blackwell's testimony might be enough to start proceedings. He's looking at a hanging otherwise. And my status with the agency? I've sent telegrams confirming you're alive. They're naturally interested in debriefing you. The marshal studied Isaac thoughtfully. Though I get the impression you might not be rushing back to that life. Isaac glanced toward the hotel where Olivia was helping Tommy and Jeremiah purchase supplies. You'd be right about that. Sheriff Taylor had organized a community effort to help rebuild the Calloway Ranch. The people of Redemption Creek, though not wealthy, contributed what they could labor, materials, food for the workers. It was a testament to the respect Olivia had earned during her years in the territory. By the week's end, with Blackwell and his captured men transported to stand trial, Isaac and Olivia returned to the burned-out remains of the ranch to begin rebuilding. The cabin was destroyed, but the barn had survived with minimal damage, providing temporary shelter while construction began. Through the fall and into winter, they rebuilt not just structures, but a life together. The new cabin rose larger than the original, with rooms for Tommy and Jeremiah, and space for the future they both dared to imagine. Isaac applied his Pinkerton skills to improving security around the property, while Olivia's practical knowledge of ranching guided their efforts to restore the herd and prepare for spring. On Christmas Eve, with snow dusting the Nevada landscape, Isaac asked Olivia to marry him. They stood on the porch of their half-completed cabin, wrapped in blankets against the cold, watching the stars emerge. "Are you certain?" Olivia asked, her breath forming clouds in the frigid air. "This life, it's not the excitement you knew before." Isaac chuckled, pulling her closer. "I've had enough excitement for several lifetimes. This you, Tommy, this ranch. This is what I've been searching for without even knowing it." Their wedding took place on the first day of spring 1877, with the ranch coming back to life around them. Sheriff Taylor officiated, and the small population of Redemption Creek turned out to celebrate. Tommy served as best man, proudly standing beside Isaac as he promised to love and protect Olivia for the rest of his days. "Never thought I'd see the day," Jeremiah commented during the modest reception afterward. "You two are about as different as two people can be. Yet somehow, it makes perfect sense." "She saved my life," Isaac replied simply, watching Olivia laugh with some of the townswomen. "In more ways than one." "And you gave her back something she'd lost," the old ranch hand observed. "Hope. Been a while since I've seen that light in her eyes." As spring turned to summer, news arrived that the wealthy men behind the Blackwell Gang had indeed been indicted, thanks partly to Wade Blackwell's testimony in exchange for avoiding the gallows. The Pinkerton agency formally acknowledged Isaac's survival and service, offering him reinstatement if he desired it. He declined politely, explaining that he had found a new purpose and a new life in Nevada. The agency, recognizing his contributions over the years, arranged for a modest pension to be paid in recognition of his service, providing additional security for the fledgling ranch. By their first anniversary, the Calloway Lawson ranch was flourishing. New cattle filled the corrals, 2 additional hands had been hired to help with the expanded operation, and most miraculously of all, Olivia was expecting their first child. "A girl, I think," she mused one evening, Isaac's hand resting on her growing belly. "She's restless, like her father. Or practical and determined, like her mother," Isaac countered with a smile. Tommy, now 13 and growing rapidly, had taken to ranch life with enthusiasm, especially after Isaac began teaching him tracking and shooting skills from his Pinkerton days. The boy who had once been quiet and withdrawn now brimmed with confidence and purpose. "If it's a girl," Tommy announced one evening at dinner, "we should name her after Mom. Margaret's a good name." Olivia's eyes glistened. "I think that's a wonderful idea, Tommy. Margaret Lawson." Isaac squeezed her hand beneath the table. "Margaret it is, then." On a warm July evening, as sunset painted the desert in gold and crimson, Margaret Daniel Lawson entered the world with a powerful set of lungs and her mother's determined expression. Isaac, who had faced armed outlaws without flinching, found himself overcome with emotion as he held his daughter for the first time. "She's perfect," he whispered, awestruck by the tiny life in his arms. "Olivia, she's absolutely perfect." Olivia, exhausted but radiant, smiled up at her husband. "Of course she is. She's ours." Later that night, with Olivia and the baby finally sleeping, Isaac stepped onto the porch of their completed home. The ranch spread before him, peaceful under the star-filled sky. In the distance, he could hear the soft lowing of cattle and the occasional nickering of horses in the corral. 2 years earlier, he had been dying alone in the desert, a man without hope or purpose, resigned to his fate. Now he stood surrounded by life and love, with a family and future stretching before him like an undiscovered country. The sound of the baby's cry drew him back inside, where Olivia was already stirring to attend to their daughter. Isaac moved to her side, gently taking the infant to allow his wife a few more moments of rest. "I've got her," he murmured, cradling Margaret against his chest. "Go back to sleep." Olivia reached out to touch his hand. "I love you, Isaac Lawson." "And I love you, Olivia Lawson." He bent to press a kiss to her forehead. "Rest now. We have all the time in the world." As he paced slowly with his daughter, soothing her back to sleep, Isaac reflected on the strange, winding path that had brought him to this moment. He had been dying slowly in silence, lost in a wilderness of his own making, until Olivia had found him, until she had looked him in the eye and declared, "You're not leaving me yet." Those words had been more than a command to his failing body. They had been an invitation back to life itself, to love, to purpose, to hope. An invitation he had accepted, first reluctantly, then wholeheartedly. Outside, the Nevada night wrapped around their home like a protective embrace. Inside, Isaac Lawson held his future in his arms, no longer a ghost, no longer a man half dead, but fully, vibrantly alive and deeply, irrevocably loved.